On today's episode of Luthorville, we'll be answering the question, what land features were you looking for?
Hey kids, my name is Eric Muss-Barnes.
And I'm Victoria Vertuga. And welcome to the latest episode of Luthorville.
There are a lot of factors to consider when buying land. I mean, everyone wants something different.
Definitely. If you're buying woodlands in Pennsylvania, you have a very different set of needs than a person buying land here in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I wanted something isolated and private, but, not so remote that I felt like the desert version of the Wilderness Family. I mean, there had to be a reasonable commute into the city, preferably under 2 hours. I'm still madly and passionately in love with Los Angeles. I mean, I've lived in California for over a decade, and I've never left the state for more than about 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I have no desire to leave Southern California, so I wanted to remain a stone's throw from Hollywood, but I also wanted property which was tranquil and isolated. I mean, if I owned land 2 miles outside of town, there could easily be an entire neighborhood there in 20 years.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I was trying to find something so far removed from civilization that 20 or 30 years from now, it will still be a solitary and stark landscape.
And that's obviously a difficult balance to strike, right? I mean, how do you find a location so far that there won't be a whole entire city engulfing it in 20 or 30 years,
Right.
but still close enough to town that it won't take you 3+ hours to drive here? It's a huge challenge.
Yeah. Now, I also wanted some character to the landscape as well. I mean, rock formations, a ridge line, a mountainside, a gully or a wash, I mean, something. I didn't want just a flat and featureless pancake slab of desert. It had to have some charm.
Character, if you will.
Exactly.
And then another issue is there's a concern about water. Before you build a property, you need to be issued a permit by the city. But since water and sanitation are required for a home, you must have a water source on the property before they will grant you this building permit. And this doesn't just apply to California. These sorts of water regulations exist all over the country.
Right.
So there are only 2 ways to legally acquire water in an unincorporated area of San Bernardino County, which are a water well or water hauling. So when you research the area and the nearby wells, Eric discovered like 3 or 4 wells within 3 miles of Luthorville, and they're all only about 100 feet deep. So in theory, he should be okay on a groundwater supply too. Although here in 2014, we are 2 years into a drought in California. So hopefully that will only last for 20 more days instead of 20 more years.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern.
Yes.
Accessibility is another concern. I mean, there are no roads in the desert, and there is a massive amount of land.
Yeah.
As a result, there are thousands of parcels in the desert that are landlocked. They may be hundreds or even thousands of feet from a road, and you need to have an easement across another property to reach them. And I didn't want to deal with all that. I wanted something that would have a legal roadway.
Yeah, unpaved desert roads hardly qualify as roads, and they're not really easy to quantify on a map either.
Yeah.
Some are filled with really deep sand, some are these steep tracks up mountainsides, some are these narrow little paths for dirt bikes and four-wheelers,
Right.
and you can't see those details from a satellite picture. You need to
Right.
physically stand on the road to really understand how easy or how difficult it may be for you to use.
Yeah. So, I mean, now that you have a basic understanding of what I needed, it's a lot of character, isolated but not impossible to reach, a water supply, not too far from the city, and I found all of that with Luthorville.
Luthorville is an educational series inspiring kids and adults to become excited about innovations in science and technology by documenting the design and construction of a Mojave desert homestead called Galatea Meridian. Witness the crazy story of how Eric Muss-Barnes, an unemployed computer geek and struggling novelist, risks homelessness by spending most of his life savings to build an off-grid dream house in the middle of nowhere. Having purchased vast acres of the Old West, can Eric find a stable job and create his home before his money runs out? Take a journey where fortitude and a pioneering spirit continue to forge the American dream on the romantic landscape of the American frontier.
Thanks for watching the latest episode of Luthorville.
And remember, Share copies of this episode with your friends and family.
And more importantly, remember, if your ambitions don't scare you,
they're not big enough.
And I will shake away the cloudy skies with a California lullaby. And when you're frozen with desire, we'll put our toes up to the fire, and I will sing your cares away.